ones. Be there emotionally and physically. Don't give up. Don't ever give up.
Caregiving is tougher than tough. Find care guides at aarp.org/caregiving. Brought to you by AARP and the Ad Council.
The point.
This is Sports Talk with Phil Kornblum, Chris Bergen, and Pat Daniel. Sports Talk is heard across the state.
Got to thank all our stations across the state who've been with us. Got to thank all the hosts here. If it weren't for the listeners who enjoy listening to us every night here from all of us, we're excited about the future and looking forward to what is ahead. And what is immediately ahead, of course, we'll look back, but what is immediately ahead is Clemson Duke tonight in steamy Durham. We're here at Duke University, where the Blue Devils are coming off a 9-win season, which was huge for them, and Clemson is coming off a 10-win season, which was a disappointment for them. So it kind of tells you right there how things have been for these two programs. Duke sees this as a tremendous opportunity to make a name on the national stage tonight on national television, having the sports audience to themselves, the Tigers and the Blue Devils. And Clemson sees tonight as an opportunity to make a statement about this year's team and about the future under Dabo Swinney, and that they do intend and they will be back among the nation's elite. No, not beating Duke alone is going to make that happen, but it will be the step in the right direction. It's also the unveiling of the new Clemson offense led by Garrett Riley and his air raid attack that will rely heavily on the run game. It's also the unveiling of a new era at quarterback for Clemson in Cade Klubnik, who takes over despite the bowl game, which was a one-and-done deal since it was the last game of the season. Now, indeed, it is his program. And can he elevate the offense to where Tiger fans and coaches think it can be, especially on a football weekend in which his predecessor, DJ Uiagalelei, threw for 5 touchdowns in his debut at Oregon State, had a very good showing with Oregon State over the weekend. So maybe this is a win-win. DJU goes out to Oregon State, finds happiness at a new place as a as a Beaver. And Cade Klubnik finds happiness as a new starter at Clemson. And Dabo Swinney and the Clemson fans find happiness with him. They certainly had lost their joy with DJU by the end of last season. So we are here for that. But also, of course, we're going to reflect on the weekend. And one thing we're going to do, or the thing I think we're going to do, from now until 7:30, Zach Willis will join the guys at 7:30. I'll be departing at 7:30 because I have to walk over to the press box, as that's going to take me a few minutes from where I'm located. So between now and then, we want to open up the phone lines. And I'm springing this on Pat, but Chris and I did discuss this. It is Labor Day. Your hosts have been laboring. We're going to have what we call Labor Day night host-free sports talk. Now, what does that mean? No, we're not signing off.
See you tomorrow.
We're not signing off. No, we're not signing off. We're not signing off. No. What we're going to do, if the listeners play along, after we give you our thoughts about this past weekend, share our observations, et cetera, we're going to open up the phone lines, 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. And unless you ask us a question or you ask about our opinion on something, we're just going to let the calls roll. We're going to take your call, let you talk, and go the next. Let you talk, and go the next. Now, we'll probably limit you to about 2.5, 3 minutes tops so we can get everybody in, assuming we're loaded up. It is a holiday night. I know that can be kind of a risk sometimes, but we shall see how this works. So, unless you have a question for us or you directly ask our opinion, we're going to turn it over to you. And I know Gamecock fans probably have a lot to say, so let me talk about South Carolina, North Carolina real quick. Well, first of all, let me welcome Chris Bergen back from his trip to Los Angeles. Did you get your ears pierced and get a tattoo and do crazy California things while you were out there?
I did not do any crazy California things, but in terms of road trips that I've taken with sports teams over my career, this one easily inside the top 5. Got to cross off a couple bucket list items while we were out there. Got a police escort by Chips. That's right. The California Highway Patrol motorcycle guys gave us a police escort from the Long Beach airport up to Pasadena. They were stopping traffic on the interstates just to allow the buses to get on the interstate. I mean, this was big time. Felt like the president coming into Los Angeles. And so got to the Rose Bowl, and obviously the history and the surroundings and the setting there was just amazing. And to be able to stand at midfield before that game on Saturday night was pretty awe-inspiring. And then on Friday, just by a quirk in the schedule, the Atlanta Braves happened to be in Los Angeles to face the Dodgers. And so I talked with my radio buddies, and we decided we'd go to the game because, first off, when would I have another opportunity to go to Dodger Stadium? And it is cracked. It is everything it is cracked up to be. It's a tremendous facility. And secondly, to see the Braves in town, team I pull for, face the Dodgers and have Max Fried go out there and pitch 7 incredibly strong innings, 10 strikeouts, only 2 base hits. I mean, he was phenomenal. And it was a lot of fun. And it happened to be, I know you won't appreciate this, Phil, but it happened to be Lakers night at the ballpark. And Vanessa Bryant was there, Kobe Bryant's widow, and they were honoring Kobe, and they raised, I think the Dodgers gave a $100,000 check to his foundation before the game, and the players came out before they actually started the game, because you know how Major League Baseball is with regards to uniforms, but they actually had the Lakers jerseys on, number 24 or number 8, when they came out, which was really cool. And then one of Vanessa threw out the first pitch, so it's a really, really cool night at Dodger Stadium. The only thing that surprised me, and I guess it shouldn't because of the lackluster fan support that all LA teams get out there, I guess with the exception of the Lakers, is you have the 2 best teams in the National League playing. Potential showdown, and certainly a potential look ahead to the NLCS, and the place wasn't full. I mean, they were empty seats all in the upper deck. I was stunned because I know had that been at Truist Park in Atlanta, you would have not gotten a seat for miles. So that disappointed me. But other than that, it was a lot of fun. And then yesterday, coming back on the charter flight, we were part of the flyover at Darlington. We actually flew over the racetrack about 5:15 yesterday afternoon before the race started. And so that was kind of cool, too, to look down and see all the traffic around little old Darlington Raceway. So that was kind of fun, but a really, really good trip. But transitioning from Eastern time to Pacific time and then back to Eastern time in a short span of time, not the easiest thing on me. So I slept in a little bit this morning after getting about 3.5 hours of sleep from the end of the game Saturday night and the turnaround yesterday to come back home. But overall, couldn't complain. It was outside of going to Alaska a couple of times and probably the Bahamas, this is one of the better road trips that I've ever been able to partake in.
All right, we'll get your thoughts on the game in just a moment. Speaking of a Labor Day of love for me, I mean, it's been Friday night high school football, Saturday Gamecocks, Sunday race, and now here in Durham for Clemson and Duke. And, hey, it's what we're made for. It's what we love to do. Let me talk about the race very quickly. I thought the race was terrific. I know early on, typical Darlington, they're running in a single file. But things picked up. Things picked up. Look, they had the longest green flag run at Darlington since 2013, which was okay. We ran the first 100 laps in an hour. First 100 laps were done in an hour. I don't think anybody minded that. But the next 267 laps, it took over 3 hours because it was a 4.5-hour race. A lot of wrecking, a lot of events. Of course, Kyle Larson wins. He punches his ticket into the next round. You had drama. You had the question about Kevin Harvick and what happened on pit road with him. You had the situation with the blocking on the track there with a couple of drivers that led to some issues. But the last 30 laps or so coming out of the pits where Larson got a great pit stop on his last pit, and he was able to get the lead from Reddick and hold him off. I mean, they were rim riding that whole way, and that was fascinating to watch how those guys held those cars right up next to the wall for the last 30 laps or so. So plenty of drama there. There was one more thing that I'm missing. What am I missing about? It was the Harvick thing.
Well,
and
I want to get into the Harvick thing real quick, and then we can talk about the lights going out.
Yeah. Well, the lights going out, that was right in front of us. It was Suarez and Bowman who were getting into a bit of a blocking incident on the track where Bowman blocked him twice. The thought was block me once, okay, block me twice. You're stepping across the line. There was Harvick and Denny Hamlin. Denny Hamlin, the other big issue, he had a very strong car, and he goes to the pits thinking he has a loose tire. Well, they can't find it. He goes back out. He comes back in. The crew still can't locate the problem. So he basically pitted his way out of the lead and out of the race, thinking he had something wrong. They said there was nothing wrong. He maintained they had something wrong. This Harvick deal, they've got to fix that because how can you penalize a guy who's already checked off the track? He's getting on the pit road. Then an incident occurs, and they throw up the red light. Well, it's too late for him. He's already committed and getting on the pit road. How can you penalize him for that?
It's a bad rule, and I don't know at what point in time, though, how far back do you allow them to come into pit roads when it's closed? I understand they're trying to hold hard and fast. When that red light comes on, pit road is closed, you go in, you suffer a penalty. That cost Kevin Harvick the race, more than likely, and allowed Kyle Larson to win it. And Kyle Larson was very blunt about that. He and his crew chief after the win last night said, that changed all the perspective and changed the strategy and everything else. It's a bad rule, but I don't know how to fix it because at some point in time they can't say, if you're slowing down on the track and then you come down onto the apron and then go into the pit road, could you say, well, I was pitting before the incident occurred? Harvick, fairly obvious. There was nothing else he could do. He was in the wrong place at the wrong time for that to occur when it's starting to spin out. And Kyle Larson actually talked about he was going to pit at the same time and happened to see Ryan Newman starting to spin on the track and thought, you know what, I better stay out here because he didn't want to get in a similar situation to Kevin Harvick did. But when it cost a driver a chance to win a race in the playoffs, NASCAR is going to get some scrutiny for that, and deservedly so. But again, and we can ask Kerry about this tomorrow. I don't know what the fix is, but it's a bad rule. There's no doubt.
All right. And let me also correct one thing. I mentioned DJ Uyangalele. He accounted for 5 touchdowns, didn't pass for 5. He had 3 passing and 2 rushing. So not a bad debut for him with the Beavers. 20 of 25 for 239. So, but it was against San Jose State. So, he wasn't really pressed. Let's see how he does moving forward. All right, South Carolina, North Carolina. And, the Gamecocks did a lot of bad in that game, for sure. Can't sugarcoat it whatsoever. Maybe, in all my years of covering college football, going back to 1980, maybe the worst offensive line performance I have ever seen. And that's being nice about it. I mean, I've seen offensive lines unable to block guys and open up running lanes. I've seen offensive lines unable to protect the quarterback, but maybe open up some running lanes. Seldom do you see an offensive line unable to do either. Now, it's amazing. Spencer Rattler, and I'm not just saying this because he's here, the South Carolina quarterback, he deserves National Player of the Week. I know it was in a loss, but if you watch that game up close, for him to complete his passes and throw for 353 yards and also lead the team in rushing because he was running for his life, with that offensive line performance, that was amazing. He was amazing. And that's why I'm going to throw water on the fire of the people who just have checked out now on South Carolina. You know, there's been plenty of that because he gives them hope. And Leggett gives them hope. And when they get Juice Wells back, that will give them hope. And Trey Knox gives them hope, and Simon will give them some hope. And they have to hope the offensive line gets better. I don't know what the problem was. Was it poor coaching? Was it a poor combination of players? Are these guys not good enough? You got 3 transfers. You're working in and out. They are playing up. This is what we talked about earlier in the camp. You know, you get transfers. You're taking them from lower-level programs. Can they help you? You know, they took the running back from Newberry at D2 school. He's never going to play at South Carolina meaningful snaps probably at this point. If he's not starting running back by now because they had to convert a quarterback wide receiver to running back, what does that tell you? So, I mean, you get these transfers and they're ballyhooed, and unless they're coming to you from other Power 5 programs where they have played and contributed, it's a risk. And those transfer offensive linemen were handled by North Carolina. 3-man rush, 4-man rush, it didn't matter. They couldn't block them. They could not form a new line of scrimmage. They were practically backed up on every snap. And it's a wonder that they still had a chance to win the ball game. And that's the other thing I have to say. Despite everything, despite the breakdown of the line, despite no running game, despite getting beat over the top a couple of times in the secondary. Despite all the injuries, they had 3 possessions down deep in North Carolina territory and only came away with 3 points. Now, it's their own fault because they had a grounding, they had a sack, and they had another penalty, I think. All three drives stalled because of their own mess-ups. So you can't conclude that they were going to score touchdowns, but they had the chance. And had they played good football and executed well and scored touchdowns there, might have been a different ball game. So I'm saying, you know, bad Gamecocks. Pitiful. And whatever criticism you're getting, you deserve because you hype this thing up. You know, that's what happens when you hype things up and you don't live up to the hype. People are going to laugh at you. And that's what they're doing now. They're laughing at South Carolina. So they got to regroup and find an offensive line that works, find a running game, get some people healthy, and better not sleep on Furman. That would be the ultimate endorsement for them. No knock on Furman, but to start 0-2 and then probably 0-3 when you face Georgia the next week, that's unmentionable for South Carolina right now. So bad day, but I think they can recover. You know, probably going to be 1-2, but then that makes that Mississippi State game huge. Got to hold serve against Mississippi State at home. Got to figure it out definitely by that Mississippi State game because that'll be a home game they're capable of winning. So that is my thoughts on South Carolina. And, Chris, you can share your thoughts there or talk about the shots before we go to the break and then open it up for the callers to take over.
Well, since we're headed that direction, I'll just give a couple of quick takes on the Gamecocks. First off, Phil, I'm like you. I'm not sure I've ever seen an offensive line allow 9 sacks and 16 tackles for loss. I mean, that's as porous as you could possibly play. I don't think they could have played any worse. And I think the turning point, though, as bad as it was, I think really the turning point in the game, and it was about the time I had to go down to the field from my responsibilities at the Rose Bowl, but the onside kick, which, of course, they roll 7s every time they do something on special teams. They hop on the onside kick to begin the second half. They're driving down the field, and they get that 4th down scenario, and I think it's Rattler to Marion Brown, if I'm not mistaken, on a little flat pass, and Brown's going to have the first down for sure. He drops the football, and I think North Carolina drives down the field and scores the touchdown, and I felt at that point in time that was probably the end of the game, even though the Gamecocks had a couple of chances later in the fourth quarter to have a chance to win that game. But, yeah, aside from the offensive line play, and it's hard to argue that was anything but awful, I thought that was interesting. And also, I think this is a question that probably needs to be posed to Shane Beamer and his staff, and maybe Luke Day in particular. Why does this team keep getting so many major injuries to key players? Eman Mori goes out in the first defensive series. You have Juice Wells, who we thought was going to play. I'm not sure how much he got to play because I obviously didn't get to see the entire game. You have Mo Kaba gets hurt again, and he may be out for a while, it sounds like. And this is the same scenario that we've had happen to them time and time again throughout the past couple of seasons. Is their conditioning program not up to par? Are they over-conditioning those guys? I think it's time for Shane Beamer and the staff to start looking at and explaining to the fans, why are these guys constantly being hurt?
That's a very good question. I mean, is it just bad luck? Think about this. Eman Worry was an unheralded freshman. Season opening game of last year, R.J. Roderick gets hurt first series of the game. Eman Worry has to be rushed in, and the rest is history. He becomes a freshman All-American. He gets hurt on the very first play of the game and has to come out, and they have to put Kilgore in back there. And he did a nice job, but, I mean, they did not want to play Kilgore major snaps for sure. He's back there with DQ Smith. He does a nice job. He does the best that he could. What really hurt them was not having David Spalding, and they had to play Keenan Nelson in that nickel spot, and Nelson got beat twice on touchdown passes. Not blaming it all on him. Again, he's a freshman playing for the first time, thrown out there under fire. You raise good questions about the injuries. Is it something they're doing, or is it just plain bad luck? Because sometimes you can just be unlucky when it comes to the injury front. So, real quick on your Chanticleers score, looks like I didn't get a chance to see any of it because of the work after the game. But score indicates that they kind of hung in there and gave UCLA a pretty good fight. Listening, I was able to pick up the UCLA broadcast on satellite as I was heading out, and their guys made it sound like they beat up Grayson McCall pretty good.
Yeah, they did. They absolutely did. Grayson, all of last season, threw 2 interceptions. He had 2 against UCLA, also a fumble. So those 3 turnovers were critically important. And they sacked him 4 times and roughed him up a good bit. They got a lot of pressure on Grayson McCall. And obviously, their defensive front is pretty good. And it's bigger than Coastal. And then Coastal, flip side, going up against an offensive line that averaged 305 across the board. They just couldn't get any pressure on their quarterback. So that was a huge, huge difference. But you go into the fourth quarter, and had I told Tim Beck you'd be playing in the Rose Bowl against UCLA, and the game would be a 14-13 contest, and you'd have a 55-yard field goal attempt to take the lead early in the fourth quarter, I'm pretty sure he would have signed up for that to begin the season. They missed the field goal, and then almost immediately UCLA hits a 62-yard touchdown pass on the ensuing play, and then they kick a couple of field goals to break it open and win 27-13. The final score is probably not indicative of how close it actually was. UCLA struggled at times. They've got 2 quarterbacks they're trying to figure out. My guess is Dante Moore, their freshman phenom, who is one of the highly touted quarterbacks coming out of college, I think actually committed to Oregon, changed his mind and ended up at UCLA. I think he's probably going to be their starter moving forward because he's very athletic, throws well on the run, and gives them a dynamic that their originally starting quarterback, Ethan Garbers, just does not. But Garbers is a transfer from Washington, had played. He's a redshirt junior, so I'm guessing Chip Kelly felt more comfortable in the opener going with the more established, mature guy. But what I saw from Dante Moore, I'm not sure that's going to be the case in game 2 for them. But, yeah, if you're Tim Beck, I think you can take a lot of positives away from Coastal's game. They've got to clean up the turnovers. But then on the flip side, they also forced 3 turnovers. And Clayton Isbell, in his first game as a Chanticleer, tied a school record with 3 interceptions. And, oh, by the way, that's tying one Josh Norman, who also had 3 interceptions in a game for Coastal. So pretty good company at CCU. But, yeah, UCLA, the better team, but Coastal certainly gave them everything they could handle. And going in as I think, 15, 16-point underdog, if you look at it from that perspective, they covered. But actually had a chance to grab the lead early in the fourth, dominated the third quarter, actually scored the only touchdown in the third, and actually held the ball for about 13 minutes of the third quarter. So did everything they could. Just the size up front on both sides of the lines of scrimmage ultimately got to them.
Okay, we're going to hit the bottom of the hour break here, and then we'll come back and open it up for your phone calls. If you'd like to take over the show, that's what we're going to do. Unless you have a question for us or you ask our opinion, we'll let you state your thoughts about the Gamecocks and the Tar Heels, the Chants and the Bruins and the Tigers and the Blue Devils tonight, as well as any of the other games around the state and around the country. We'll touch on some other things as well. Phone number is 888-898-2525. That is the South Carolina Education Lottery to ring in to Sports Talk tonight, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. It is hot here in Durham. It's 94 degrees, and it's not going to cool off very much as this game plays out tonight. The temperature, by the time we roll into, say, like 10 o'clock tonight here in Durham, it's only going to drop to about 83 degrees by 9 o'clock and 79 degrees by 10 o'clock. So we've got some hot and humid conditions here. We'll be back.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
This is Ian with AccuClean. With fall in sight, it's time to refresh and clean your carpets and upholstery. Whether it's pet stains or dirt buildup from everyday use, we've got you. AccuClean is a veteran-owned and local carpet, rug, and upholstery cleaning company that's been here in the Midlands for over 20 years. Call AccuClean today at 803-957-1202. That is AccuClean at 803-957-1202. I'll see you soon.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting Ecuador's location is increasingly putting it at the confluence of two global trades, bananas and cocaine. The country is the world's largest exporter of bananas, shipping about 6.5 million metric tons a year by sea. It's also wedged between the world's largest cocaine producers, Peru and Colombia. Traffickers' infiltration of the industry that's responsible for about 30% of the world's bananas has contributed to unprecedented violence across the once peaceful nation. Russian President Vladimir Putin says a wartime deal that allowed Ukraine to export grain safely through the Black Sea won't be restored until the West meets Moscow's demands on its own agricultural exports. Ukraine and its Western allies have dismissed the demands as a ploy to advance Russian interests. More details at srnnews.com.
There's more than one kind of customer when it comes to Shooter's Choice. First, there's the customer who knows what's what, has a pretty good idea of what he or she likes. You're looking for a few things. First, a good selection. Yep, Shooter's Choice has a huge selection. Firearms, ammo, accessories, optics, even gun safes. You're looking for good and fair pricing. Oh yeah, Shooters has been around as your local stop forever because they treat you right. And how about customer service? Absolutely the best you'll find anywhere. The folks who work at Shooter's Choice are shooters and hunters just like you. They know their products. They can answer your question. And that brings me to the other type of customer. Someone maybe more like me. No expert for sure, but wants to learn from the right people. I don't need some big box store guy who works in the shoe department half a week, sporting goods the other half. I need the experts at Shooter's Choice who will treat me right, answer my questions as simple as they might be. They'll make my experience excellent. Online, it's shooterschoicesc.com or visit them in person on Sunset Boulevard in West Columbia. Make it your first choice, your best choice. Make it Shooter's Choice.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
The pipes burst, you're getting the repairs done. Now it's time for your flooring. This is where the flooring department shines. We don't have a huge multi-million-dollar showroom, but we all buy from the same manufacturers. So why pay more? We're locally owned and have 30 years experience in the flooring industry, and we stand by our work. Get tremendous customer service and great pricing with the flooring department, 951-3567, or online at theflooringdepartment.com. That's 951-3567 or 951-FLOR. The Flooring flooring department.
September means football and fall temps rolling in, but when it comes to our favorite fur babies, the shelters are still full from summer, and those dogs and cats need you more than ever. Columbia Animal Shelter proudly takes part in the Best Friends Animal Society's National Adoption Weekend with free adoptions on all pets on the 15th and 16th. Visit petfinder.com to see which puppy or kitty cat you'd like as a part of your family. Be a hero and adopt your next pet. Visit petfinder.com today.
Have you heard about the South Carolina Wise Women program? It's for women age 40 to 64 who meet other criteria to reduce their risk of heart disease and stroke through screenings and services for high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, and more. Ask your healthcare provider about it or learn more at cdc.gov/wisewoman. This announcement was made possible by the CDC 1816 grant. Its contents are solely the responsibility of the authors and do not necessarily represent the official views of CDC.
Going to be honoring the 1989 Duke ACC championship football team, the one that beat Danny Ford's Clemson Tigers 21-17. Clemson had a miserable game that day, turned the ball over. We were talking about that. I was sitting with a bunch of Clemson people having some lunch. Ate at that restaurant right at the baseball ballpark there in downtown Durham. Durham has really come a long way. Kind of reminds me of Columbia with all the condominiums and maybe student housing they're building there. I don't know if it's student housing or not, but they're throwing up these condo buildings all over the place. But anyway, they have a very nice sports bar type restaurant right there at the baseball stadium. I'm sure you've seen it, Chris and Pat. And we were talking about that. And so they're going to honor that team. And Steve Spurrier is going to be here tonight as part of that team. So I'm sure he'll have a few things to say about things if people side up to him. Okay. It's Sports Talk. It's our 40th anniversary show. Thank you for all the roses, the bottles of wine. The money wasn't necessary, but we appreciate it nonetheless. But to reward you for the next hour, if you play along, it'll be less of us and more of you, because we're going to go host free unless you ask us a question or ask our opinion of something. We're going to turn it over to you, give you 2 or 3 minutes to say your piece, and then we'll move on to the next caller. 888-898-2525 is the number. It's also a way to keep Pat off the air for a little while. No, I'm just kidding. Let's go to Gamecock Larry. Well, first of all, I'm just pleased as punch that Gamecock Larry's still with us after this past weekend. All right, Gamecock Larry, the floor is yours.
Don't worry about my Gamecocks. No doom and gloom. We stunk, but we going to regroup. Instead of 12-0, we going to go 11-1. Dogs, we coming after you. We got to get Furman first. But Rattler was the better quarterback Saturday night. If he'd have had Juice Wells full force and Leggett and Doty, he'd have got 500 yards. But they had when that first touchdown, the runner crawled. He crawled 1.5 yards across the goal line. Therefore, he was down before he crossed the goal line. And there was a Gardner push-off on the next touchdown on the offensive back. I'm not saying that's what's caused us to lose, but that's all right. We lost, we stunk, we're going to regroup, and we're going to go 11-1. And oh yeah, Mr. Field tonight, Tigers 31, Blue Devils 34. That's all I got to say. There go, Blue Devils, go.
Hey, I kind of like this. Thank you, Larry. Thank you. I kind of like this host-free deal here. Let's go to Donald in Spartanburg. Next up here on Sports Talk, Donald, the show is yours. Go ahead, sir.
Yes, sir. I'm just upset about my Gamecocks. What bothers me more than anything, I didn't see a lot of emotions on the offense or defense. They didn't seem like they got after it. Plus, on the 2 home run balls that North Carolina throws, why would you not put another safety back there, knowing our defensive backs are real young, and if they would have had another safety back there, he might have had interception. But saying all that, as bad as the offensive line, and after the game, the coach he did the conference. He's talking about, well, he was worried about the offensive line and all this and that. He ought to have all that squared away. He had the whole summer to do that. All the scrimmages they did, and he didn't know if the offensive line was going to be up to par. See, that's the problem that I have. You got to take what you got, win what you got. And I thought even though we stuck up on the offense line, we still had opportunity because of the quarterback, Spencer and Leggett. Plus, the offense come up with 2 major turnovers. We were inside the 20-yard line 3 times. Got 1 field goal. We scored 2 touchdowns, win the ball game. Plus, we'd have done something on the onside kick. We would have done something. The guy hit him right in the hands. He catches that ball. He goes at least to the 30-yard line right there. Mm-hmm. So we killed our own self. But I would like to see more emotion. I think it hurt that we lost Bale. He went over to Florida State. I know it hurt. Van hurt him. Plus defense tackle. But I thought, to be honest with you, that the defense, after they scored their 31 points, they boiled up and stopped the run, and plus they had 2 interceptions. So I was happy about that. The only thing I see is Beamer's going to have to get more enthusiasm, put some fire under them guys. You got to do like the fire ant days. We didn't have near the talent they got now. And them guys got after it. Get after it and stop it. Your defensive backs, I know they're young. Well, they going to, if they do, put extra help back there. Do something on that. But I'll be hollering for this Saturday, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. 888-898-2525. Agree with him. Thought they were a little bit flat at times on the sidelines. Didn't see the hooping and hollering. Of course, that happens when you fall behind. I think I told everybody Florida State was going to be good. I think they answered that.
There's no doubt.
This
was really good last night, especially second half.
Yeah, absolutely. Host free, but we can throw a comment in here and there. Anything you want to say real quick?
No, I was going to ask, since he sort of hinted at a question, why didn't Shane Beamer roll some help back into the secondary to try and protect some of those younger guys, in your opinion?
I'm not sure they had the players. Spalding was out. Eman Worry goes down early. I don't know who else you can run out there. Not to look at the depth chart. Maybe there's some other people they could have thrown out there, but maybe they didn't think they were ready, Let's go to, this is a host-free show tonight. We turn it over to you unless you have a question for us or you want our opinion. Oh, by the way, Yankees swept Houston in Houston. 1 game under 500. Only 8.5 back of the wild card. Yeah, and we got our pitching going together. We got some young baby bombers up there now.
I don't remember a caller asking, though, Phil. Host free, right?
Well, I said ideas that pop in our head we can throw out there, okay?
Well, the Braves have a 15-game lead in the National League East for first, since you brought it up.
Right. Nothing to worry about there. Andy in Columbia, the Sports Talk show is yours on this Labor Day night. Welcome in.
Now we know why he brought up the Yankees, because I was coming up next. Okay, 2 positives first to start with. Congratulations on 40 years. It's a miracle Corn's been able to survive 40 years on the radio. Congratulations to you, young man. You've lasted longer than Pat's been alive. So
That's true.
Good for you on that. My second positive goes out to the polar bear, becoming the 5th player in Major League Baseball history in their first 5 years of playing to hit 40 or more home runs in at least 3 games. 3 years, 3 seasons. And those other 4 people are Ralph Kiner, Eddie Matthews, Ryan Howard, and Albert Pujols. And let's not forget, one of those 5 years that he didn't hit 40 home runs, one of the 2 years, I should say, was a COVID year. So he'd probably be tied with Ralph Kiner right now for the 4 years of 40. Now, regarding I don't know what to call it, unfortunately, it wasn't on ESPN, so it wasn't blacked out, so I had the inopportune time of watching that debacle on TV Saturday night. We need to take our NIL money and put it into offensive and defensive lines, because what was out there this past Saturday night was pitiful. I mean, realistically, Chris, Corn, and I could have probably blocked better than what was out there on our offensive line. I mean, I'm not throwing Pat in there because he's too young of a young man to be thrown into that. I'm talking about us old folks, starting with the 50s on ups. And regarding the gentleman who called about this, why didn't they put anybody back at safety? Corn, you hit it right on the nose. We had no other safeties to put back there. That's how thin we are. But we couldn't block. We gave up 9 sacks to a team that in 14 games last year only had 17 sacks.
Mm-hmm.
They did over half the amount of sacks in one game that they had all of last season. That's pitiful. That's, excuse my language, piss poor. And there's no excuse. Okay, there's how many players in the transfer portal? There's got to be better than what we've brought in here for our offensive line. And I'm the one who said, well, these guys that we brought in, well, they've developed in the lower ranks. Well, you know what? They proved me pretty wrong this first week. Hopefully they can prove me a little bit better in the weeks ahead. I'm not giving up on this team, but I'm very, very, very disappointed in what they showed us this past week. And the running game, you can't run when you can't block anybody. Okay, so we have no idea what Joyner can do as a runner because he had no one that could give him any help trying to run the ball. And what Spencer did was outstanding, and I think we're seeing the emergence of Xavier Legette, which we've been waiting for many years in the past. He did very well. And, of course, the special teams did what they always do. Kroger averaged over 50 yards a punt. That onside kick, I thought that was going to be the key right there when they did that onside kick. But then they came out and couldn't do a thing. Just like we took the ball in the first, the kickoff. We won the toss, took the kickoff. They came out and tried to do a razzle-dazzle play, and that blew up in their face. And we started, I don't know. I'm just completely disappointed in what we saw this week, and hopefully we'll see better to come with Furman. We have a good quarterback. Like I said, we need to take some NIL money and throw it more at these beefy guys up on the line and give them some money, because if we don't have lines on either side, it doesn't matter what we have in the other positions, because we're never going to be able to play SEC caliber ball. You gentlemen have a great evening, and once again, congratulations on 40 years. Thank you for
Thank you very much. We do appreciate that. I didn't think I would see the line play as poorly as the line played last year on many occasions. So there were times last year that the line did some good things, but the line play was just
awful.
You can't excuse it. It's inexcusable.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sorry. It's that performance was just not only the 9 sacks, 16 tackles for loss. Yep. Imagine that. North Carolina had 51 all of last year. They had 16 in one game. Conversely, but here you go. The defensive line is not without shame either. They had 0 sacks and 1 tackle for loss. So they weren't getting penetration. They weren't getting off the blocks. And even though they did come up with a couple of picks, one was May's fault, one wasn't. You give the secondary some credit there. Here's the thing that's got to hurt if you're South Carolina. You had a quarterback throw for 353. You won the turnover battle 2-0. You made a play on special teams in recovering the onside kick. You got 3 drives inside the red zone with chances to score in the second half. Yet you lose the game. So obviously the things they did poorly, they did so poorly they couldn't overcome it. And that would be blocking and creating a running game and defending the pass. I'm not giving the secondary a pass because they had a hard time defending the pass. Of course, a lot of teams are going to have a hard time stopping Drake May. North Carolina is a much improved team. There's no question about it. They're going. Remember, they were 9-1 last year before they hit the skids. They'll be very good again this year. Gene Chizik, I think it was Chuck Reedy. No, it was Ellis, because Chuck called him soft on defense. We'll see how he feels this week. I think it was Ellis who said Gene Chizik would have him improved on defense, and I think he's right in that assessment. Got to run to the break, and we'll come back with more. It's a host-free Labor Day night. You call. You take the show unless you ask us a question or ask for our opinion. We'll let you say what you have on your mind. 888-898-2525 is the phone number right here on Sports Talk. Also, over the weekend, didn't have a whole lot of success among South Carolina teams. That's to say the least. Of course, Gamecocks lost, Coastal lost, Wofford lost, Presbyterian lost, SC State lost again. Newberry did win at Shippensburg. Citadel lost. Erskine lost at Allen. That means Allen won. And Benedict beat Shaw. And we'll be back.
It all builds up to this at Darlington Raceway.
If you're going to kick off the playoffs, why not do it big?
Green flag is up.
Like Labor Day weekend big.
That's how you make a move. And around goes Truex.
Like Southern 500 big. The only thing bigger than the action will be the experience of seeing it live. NASCAR Playoffs weekend at Darlington Raceway, September 2nd and 3rd. Get your tickets today at darlingtonraceway.com. Discover South Carolina.
Dumpster Plus is your solution to a more cost-effective and professional work site. Dumpster Plus provides a roll-off dumpster and porta-john in one. Give them a call at 803-500-5094 and ask them about 2 services for the price of one. It's 1 call, 1 delivery, 2 services. Locally owned and operated in Columbia, and that means you'll talk to a real live local person, ready to get what you need with a 24-hour turnaround guaranteed. Whether your worksite is residential or commercial, big or small, near or far, you'll save money with Dumpster Plus. Waste management solutions never look so good. Call Dumpster Plus at 803-500-5094. That's 803-500-5094 for Dumpster Plus.
Hi, folks. This is Mike Morgan. I want to tell you about an exciting new product from my friends at Vision Air Solutions. Staying healthy in my line of work is so critical, and probably in yours as well. A large factor in all that is making sure we're breathing in healthy and safe air every day. That's where Vision Air Solutions comes in. They make sure your home has air purification for all the air pollution you can't see. Viruses, mold, bacteria, stale odors, cooking smells, and volatile organic compounds. They make sure your home is full of clean air and also offer HVAC duct cleaning and sanitation as well. Make sure you and your family are breathing clean air today by giving Vision Air Solutions a call today. 803-220-1811. That's 803-220-1811. Tell them Mike sent you.
Hi, it's Phil Kornblut of the Sports Talk Media Network. We love our high school football in South Carolina, and we love bringing you the scores every Friday night. From 10 to midnight, we check in on every region across the state with live reports and coaches' interviews. So whether you're in your car after a game or lounging in your den, be sure to dial up the Founders Federal High School scoreboard Friday nights right here on the Sports Talk Media Network.
If you're looking to stay hydrated this summer, turn toward a southern favorite, sweet South Carolina watermelons. One slice is equivalent to a glass of water and is just as effective as sports drinks for hydration. If you don't believe us, you can ask the Palmetto State's top football teams. The SC Watermelon Association will be serving up slices after summer practice to keep our teams fueled and hydrated. Visit scwatermelon.org for all the details and look for ripe South Carolina watermelons in your hometown.
The lottery is not about getting rich. It's about helping people, and it always has been. The lottery is what helped raise the Great Wall of China, build the roads of Rome, and today in South Carolina, it's what generates millions of dollars each year for scholarships like the SC Hope, Life, and Palmetto Fellows. The South Carolina Education Lottery is investing in you. Visit sceducationlottery.com/betteryou to learn more.
Back on Sports Talk Media Network from Durham, as well as from Sardis and from Columbia. Checking out this forecast for Durham tonight. I wanted to see the high today in Durham, 97 degrees. It was all of that. And the humidity, let's see what we got here humidity-wise. The wind's about 5 miles an hour. The feel-like temperature is 108 and 5% chance of rain. And I'm trying to find the humidity number here in my fancy-dancy weather app. It's not telling me the humidity. It's high because I'm sweating like a horse out here. So I can tell you it is hot and humid, and it's going to be a test. It's going to be a test of the endurance of these players, their conditioning out there tonight, too. That would be a factor. Who's going to wear down? Who's got the greater depth, because it's going to be a hot and humid night. Okay, it is a host-free Monday on this Labor Day. And we're turning the show over to you as you call in, 888-898-2525, unless you have a question for us or you ask for a response or a comment. We'll let you share your thoughts without interruption. We go to Bruce out in Missouri. Next with us here on Sports Talk. It's all yours, Bruce. Welcome in.
Well, thank you, Phil, for taking my call tonight. And I want to thank all the hosts and the guests that come on and give us a view of things. The head coaches from the couch is quite an obligation to live up to. So, anyway, and you got a variety of sports that you talk about and give us the down and dirty about it. And that's why I've stuck with y'all since I've been in Abbeville. Been in South Carolina, and then I moved out here, and I couldn't do it without y'all.
Well, thank you.
So, thank you for being a good host and what you do. So, anyway, I'd like to bring up the fact that Abbeville won again, last-minute touchdown, and won the game on a single A state championship team, and they just don't give up. It's amazing what they've done so far these two games.
Well, obviously, yeah, okay. Oh, you're asking a question opinion. Okay. Obviously, Abbeville's Abbeville, and they've been Abbeville since I can ever remember. I can't hardly ever remember in our 40-plus years of working, 40 years with the show, Abbeville not being a very, very good football program. Don't win the championship every year, but I go back to Coach Dennis Botts. That's who I remember at the start of our show, and they were really, really, really good then, and they have, under Coach Nichols, have gone to that and maybe even higher, and doesn't surprise me at all every time Abbeville wins because they're that good. And, and they are a team that doesn't recruit, quote, unquote. They take what they have, and they develop in their system, and they win, and they're willing to play anybody. I've seen them line up against Hartsville I've seen them line up against, I think, Gaffney. They'll play anybody, anytime, anywhere, and not worry about it. So they have a great football program, and I see no drop-off in the future.
Well, Phil, I played on a team that was a AA team level, but we had to go up 3A. I calculated how many students we're going to have for 2 years. And we came in third place our first year in AAA ball, and then we won the state championship, and we played another AA team down in Paisley. So, it's a small community, and we're all together, and we play good ball. Thank you, Phil.
Thank you. Appreciate you very much. Okay, top of the hour break. We'll continue with your phone calls. It's a host-free Labor Day Monday night. Better take advantage of it. Hey, we might do this every Monday night, come to think of it. But better take advantage of it. Yeah. Take advantage of it tonight. We'll take your calls when we come back.
Someone will be right with you. The point.
WQXL Columbia, W264DF.
Grills, outdoor kitchens, fireplaces, summer sizzle starts with Bart. This is 107. The point.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting. Israeli security forces have clashed with armed Palestinians in the occupied West Bank city of Jenin.
This is the first known raid to involve undercover Israeli troops going into Jenin since the major assault in July. Local sources have told the BBC they entered in Palestinian cars and targeted a building used by Al-Qassam brigades, the armed wing of the Palestinian militant group Hamas. Unconfirmed Israeli reports say a so-called suicide drone, or a small explosive drone, was used against militants who were firing at the troops, injuring several of the militants, while Palestinian reports claim gunmen shot the drone down.
BBC correspondent Tom Bateman reporting from Jerusalem. A 46% pay raise, a 32-hour week with 40 hours of pay, and a restoration of traditional pensions. The demands that a more combative United Auto Workers Union has pressed on General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford are edging it closer to a strike when its contract ends September 14th. In remarks at the Detroit Labor Day Parade, UAW President Sean Fain tells WXYZ-TV locals across the union are ready to battle General Motors, Stellantis, and Ford.
We're fed up, just like all the working class is fed up, with watching these companies taking billions in profits. We've watched the CEOs rake in millions in salaries. We've watched shareholders rake in billions in dividends. And we've watched workers' wages, benefits go backwards.
The wide gulf between the sides could mean a strike against one or more of the automakers, which could send already inflated vehicle prices even higher. The Federal Reserve has reached a delicate stage in its fight against inflation. Its policymakers have raised their key interest rate to its highest level in 22 years. The question remains, will there be another hike? More on these stories at townhall.com.
The roof was completely gone. All of our memories being wiped away.
The rain is what got 20 minutes of sheer terror.
You can feel it in your body.
I watched the fire move down the canyon. The rumbling of the house.
My son started screaming, we're going to die, we're going to die. In the name of Jesus, we are not going to die.
At Samaritan's Purse, we bring spiritual and physical aid to hurting people around the world. We go into dangerous situations because in disaster, in disease, in war, Jesus calls us to love our neighbor, to heal the sick, feed the hungry, restore the broken. All who work and volunteer with Samaritan's Purse follow the example of Jesus. We go to serve, not to be served. And we go in Jesus' name. Join us at SamaritansPurse.org. That's SamaritansPurse.org.
Fun.
Ecuador, thanks to its geographic location, is increasingly at the confluence of two global trades, bananas and cocaine. and it's paying the price in violence. Correspondent Charles de Ledesma reports.
The South American country is the world's largest exporter of bananas because of its soil and climate, shipping by sea about 6.5 million metric tons a year. But it's also wedged between the world's largest cocaine producers, Peru and Colombia. Beatrix Garcia Nice, who's with the Wilson Center Latin American program, tells the AP the higher levels of violence that we're seeing right now in Ecuador correlates with lax border controls. The cocaine traffickers' efforts to infiltrate the massive banana industry is contributing to tensions across this once peaceful nation. I'm Charles de Ledesma.
News and analysis at townhall.com. I'm Keith Peters reporting.
Dave Ramsey here. Do you want your money to work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
And make the world a better place. Oh, She Can STEM. Learn more at She Can STEM. A message brought to you by the Ad Council.
The point.
Welcome back to Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network. You can reach the guys with the South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number, 888-898-2525. That's 888-898-2525. Now back to Phil, Chris, and Pat with the second hour of Sports Talk on the Sports Talk Media Network.
Welcome back, everybody. Sports Talk Media Network. Happy Labor Day night to you. Phil Kornblut and Chris Bergen and Pat Daniel. I'm in Durham for Clemson, and Duke kicking off at about 8:08. If you're on Spectrum, then you have ESPN. Well, you're out of luck. You are out of luck. Yeah. Now, if you have something else, you can watch it either on the stream or on your television. Speaking of streaming, I want to remind you to be sure that you download the Chief Sports app, and do that if you haven't done it already. Make sure you do that right away. It's a brand new way to get us on Sports Talk. Chief Sports app. That's Chief like the Chiefs, but no S. Chief Sports app. It's a great app that's recently been developed, and their goal is to have access to a number of different sports talk shows, podcasts, YouTubes, things like that, and we are a part of it with both our live stream of Sports Talk, the radio show, and also Sports Talk on YouTube. And, of course, our YouTube channel, love for you to sign up for that. Always gives you access to archive shows, live shows, etc. Don't forget Sports Talk, our feed on Facebook, our feed on X, also Sports Talk SC on Instagram, and our podcast. We take the show, put it in podcast form, and the elements, put those in podcast form every night. They're available at Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Audible, and SoundCloud. All right? So if you're looking for us and you want to find us, by golly, you can find us somewhere. It is a
Sports Network, by the way, Phil, was the way I got to listen to you guys out in Los Angeles on Friday.
Well, fantastic. It works coast to coast and world to world. Maybe somebody on the moon will listen to us one day. All right, so it's a host-free Labor Day Monday night, which means we are listening to you, giving you the floor if you want the floor. Coming off the weekend, 888-898-2525, South Carolina Education Lottery lucky number. And once we give it to you, you can run with it as you see fit. If you have a question for us or you want us to comment on something, then we'll be happy to oblige. At the bottom of the hour, it'll be 1st and 10 with Zach Willis. Zach paid close attention to the South Carolina-North Carolina game. He'll have comments on that. And, of course, he'll break down what's ahead tonight for Clemson and Duke and other things in college football that he and Chris and Pat will discuss. Want to also mention from over the weekend, of course, can't talk about college football over this weekend without mentioning Colorado and the job they did at TCU, and Deion Sanders proving you don't have to be a great coach to be a great coach. You just have to motivate, inspire, have an idea, have a really good staff, and have some good players. And, you know, his young son, Shedeur Sanders, back when the Gamecocks signed Shiloh Sanders, we heard about Shedeur Sanders. I think he was a 10th grader at that time. And his brother would say he's going to be a good one. And you would have thought that had things worked out and Shiloh Sanders stayed at South Carolina and Deion Sanders did not become a D1 coach or a coach at any level, that they might have a chance at Shedeur Sanders. Shedeur Sanders originally went to FAU to play for the former head coach at Florida State who went to FAU, who was at Oregon. Willie
Taggart?
Willie Taggart, that's right. Things didn't work out well there for him. Deion said that he didn't like the offensive coordinator. So he left, went to Jackson State, of course, became the starter immediately. And then when they transferred to Colorado, his dad, he went with him, and he threw for over 500 yards, which brings me back to the Gamecocks and to Shane Rattler. And that is, you can win. You can win throwing the football almost exclusively. Colorado proved it. Mississippi State last year proved it. I think they averaged, before Mike Leach passed away, running his offense, I think they averaged under 100 rushing yards per game. But Will Rogers averaged, I think, over 400 passing yards per game. You got to have a quarterback who can do it. You got to have receivers who can do it. But you've also, numero uno, besides all that, you have got to score when you've got the opportunity. When you're in the red zone and you don't have a running game and you're relying on the pass, you better score touchdowns because you're not going to get that many opportunities, especially with the shortened games now, and you're not going to be able to just line up and run it down the field on people and grind them down. You got to take advantage of those opportunities when the passing game presents itself, a chance to score, and the Gamecocks did that, not do that against North Carolina, Chris, but I do believe when they get Wells healthy, they get a little bit more of Knox and Simon and Eddie Lewis and maybe a couple of other these receivers, going in the flow, that this offense can still be dynamic, relying almost entirely on the pass, which I thought would be what they were going to have to do, because I wasn't convinced with this rebuilt offensive line and a makeshift running back that they could produce a running game. And now one game is a very short sample. It's a very limited sample. Let's see what happens by the end of September. But based on what we saw Saturday night, a running game is going to be hard to come by for these guys.
There's no doubt. Plus, I think there were times, at least when I was watching, and I'm not a very good gauge of talent in terms of a running back. I was never one, certainly not a coach of one, but it looked like the Kerryon Joyner was a little apprehensive at hitting the hole. Where was he supposed to go? And it's understandable. I mean, it's a brand new position for him playing against this was apples versus apples for sure. It's not a situation where they were stepping down and facing an FCS program, albeit they'll face a really good FCS program this weekend. But if they're unable to run the football against Furman, I think we'll know our answer for sure. That maybe North Carolina is better, but certainly South Carolina's offensive line and run game in major, serious trouble. Back to Deion Sanders for a second, then we'll get off to the phones again. Deion Sanders, I think for those of us who looked at college football a certain way in terms of you recruit a player, you bring him in, he plays 4 years, moves on to another aspect of his life. He's flipped that on his head. Cleared out the entire roster, brought in virtually everybody off the transfer portal, and has obviously seen some early success with it. So is that going to be the new norm for new coaches when they step into a program, or is it just because Deion Sanders, who might actually turn out to be one of those rare athletes who was a superstar athlete, that's going to actually be a good head coach? Or is it because of who he is, his personality, and that name, that he's maybe one of the few people that actually could come in, overhaul an entire roster, and have success with it?
Very good question. Again, he is the program. His charisma drives that program. His verboseness drives that program, but he can back it up. And it ain't bragging if you can back it up. And I was just listening to his post-game comments to his players, and I got inspired by it. It was very Martin Luther King-like. You listen to him, you envision Martin Luther King in a football locker room giving that kind of speech. It had that kind of rhythm to it. It had that kind of verbiage to it. It was uplifting. And his players have absolutely bought into it. Now, look, he's got some terrific players. Travis Hunter is one of the best players in the country, and he proved it. He's proved it before. He proved it again on Saturday. And obviously his quarterback can be something special. But they don't play defense. And they're going to have a hard time when they step up in competition, though TCU, I guess, is pretty good competition.
Yeah.
But as they go through the meat of their now what they're in the what league are they in? They're in the Pac. They're still in the Pac.
Still in the Pac.
Aren't they?
Yeah, Pac-12 until next year. Yeah.
I'll be honest with you. I cannot keep up. I need to write it down. I cannot keep up with who is where. Okay. Well, I mean, they'll have some bigger opponents to play. TCU was a good test on the road. Maybe TCU's not all that. Washington will be very good when they play them. Of course, UCLA, Southern Cal, Oregon State. So they got some tough ones coming up. Okay. Let's go back to the phones, 888-898-2525. It's a host-free Labor Day Monday night as we turn it over to you when you call us, unless you have a question or you ask us for a comment. Let's go to Vern in Bishopville.
Yes.
Vern, the show is yours. Welcome in.
Welcome. Thank you. Hey, look at here. Anytime Carolina come out there with a bleach white helmet, no cocking under that, you don't know who the logo. I didn't know who they was. I knew right then and there they were in trouble. Shane Beamer need to get himself together. I blame him for everything that's going on. He's getting over $6 million a year. Deion Sanders already a better head coach than Shane Beamer already. And I'm not going to hold you up. I just wanted to make that statement. I heard you've been in there 40 years doing what you do and something like that. Hey, I commend you because most people have been there and give it up. You all be blessed. Vern, I'll holler back later. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. One thing about us, we don't give up and we don't give in. The helmets. I know this is. I'm going to tee this one up for you, Chris. This is a 65-mile-an-hour fastball right down the middle for you. I didn't get it either. I didn't know maybe it was some sort of agreement about, hey, it's North Carolina, South Carolina, let's throw it back to ACC days, et cetera. Seems to me when you're playing on national television, you're the big game of the night. You want to have your brand out there as much as possible. I know that look was the helmet look was a throwback look to the 60s and all that. We get it. Those who've been around and recognized it. It doesn't matter. Listen, that was not an issue of the ball game. I'm just saying, seems like to me you should be putting your brand out there. You should have a brand and stick with that brand, except on special occasions at home. That would be something I think I would do in front of the home folks when you're having like homecoming or some kind of a special night. Rest of the time, I want to have, if I'm the Gamecocks, I want to have my Block C and my Gamecock on my helmet. And me personally, my opinion, it needs to be bigger. The logo is too small to my eyes as I see it, but that's just me.
No, I agree with you. I thought the helmets were terrible, and it bothers me. And that's the one thing I've always respected about Clemson and their brands. I've never seen them ever change the way that Paul looks on their helmet. I've never seen Alabama change their helmets from when Coach Bryant was there. There are certain programs that have established an identity, and they never waver from it. You know exactly when Clemson steps on the field tonight, you'll know exactly who they are if you've watched college football for 10 days or 100 years. South Carolina, we've talked about this many times, Phil. It's not just the helmets. It's the USC situation. It's Carolina the whole night. They have no identity. They try and appease so many different people. And clearly, I guess this is one where the players enjoyed it, but it's not the school. It's like when Tennessee, they're going to do a black jersey. It's when schools who don't have black in their school colors but think it's cool, so we got to run it out there. You're orange and white. Stay with orange and white. I've never seen Clemson have a black uniform. Have you? They go orange, white, and purple. That's their school colors. They stick to it because they've established that brand. Carolina needs to do that themselves. I agree with you. Every helmet should have the Block C and the Gamecock on it, not the Carolina script, not the C without the Gamecock in it. I mean, I just don't get it.
Well, they're not Oregon when it comes to multiple uniform looks that people like and appreciate around the country, okay? Maybe some of your fan base, they get excited. Some people get excited. I think I'm not piling on South Carolina since they lost. I would have said this if they won, because I've always said this. I've been consistent in saying this. I think one of the faults of the university from an athletic standpoint, both inside the administration and their fan base, is they get too caught up on meaningless stuff. They get too caught up on uniforms. They get too caught up on videos. They get too caught up on billboards going into Charlotte telling you a sandstorm is coming. I mean, how embarrassing is that? The billboards are still up, by the way. They might want to take them down.
Ouch.
They put up billboards. I mean, you don't hear, don't get me wrong, South Carolina is known nationally in its football program for one thing and one thing only. You know what that is? Their fan support. Over and over and over again, the one thing you hear, they got great fan support. They'll travel. You go to a bowl game, they'll travel. Well, whoop-de-flip-and-do. That doesn't win you ball games. And the reason the fan support is what is identified is because they don't win enough ball games. They're barely over 500 for their entire career. You don't hear the Michigan fan base being talked about as a key element of their program, or the Ohio State fan base. Clemson, you used to, back in the 70s and 80s when they were just starting to go to bowl games and they were traveling huge and the $2 bill and all that. But once they started winning big and winning championships, that kind of talk went away. Now it's about their football team, their players, their coach, and their program. So the great programs, they don't worry about this nonsense, this meaningless stuff. But I get it. You know, South Carolina's trying to put their stamp on it. But the way you put your stamp on thing is winning ball games. And you don't play like you did this past Saturday night and lose on national television and put your stamp on anything that way. So I'm just saying, and I think Chuck has said it many times before, I think it's reasonable. Emphasize the important things, blocking, tackling, and players. And like you said, or maybe it wasn't you. I think it was Andy. If you have to spin NIL out the Cahuza to get offensive linemen, then spin NIL out the Cahuza. Also, I've had two people to text me, including the great Jim Corbett, attorney for the Stars, to suggest injury issues at South Carolina related to the Under Armour cleats. And that apparently is something that is apparently real in the program, that the Under Armour cleats are inferior and are leading to some of these injuries. I think we've heard that before, haven't we?
We have. We have heard that. I'm not sure I've heard that out of Auburn, though. Do they deal with injuries to the degree that Carolina does with the Under Armour situation? Maybe they do. We don't follow Auburn nearly as closely on a day-to-day basis. But, I mean, obviously there's something going on in that program, whether it be their apparel, their footwear, or they're not being conditioned enough. I don't know what it is, but I think somebody in that program needs to figure it out and let us know, because it's almost a given that 2 or 3 games into the season, they're going to have a good bit of their starting lineup unavailable because they've gotten hurt.
Yeah. Back to the phones we go. It's a host-free Labor Day night, Monday night here on Sports Talk. We turn it over to you. If you have a question for us or you need us to comment on something, we'll do so. Otherwise, it's all yours. Wayne in Florence, welcome into Sports Talk. It's all yours. Take it away.
Hey, how's it going? How's it going, Chris? We miss you in Florence, man.
Wayne, I appreciate that. I'm still fortunately on. I'm just on a different frequency and a little bit later, but good to hear from you.
Yeah, us old people, we don't listen to the radio at night, though. You know, we all.
Hey! 6 to 8 is not night. Let me step in here. 6 to 8 is late afternoon, early evening. It is not night.
So, Clemson tonight. Everybody's. You know, I've heard some people on ESPN talking about Duke. How good is Duke really? And my second part is, you said earlier that you can win just throwing the ball. I think that's a tricky thing, winning without being able to run it all. And South Carolina could not run it all Saturday night.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my two comments.
Thank you. It's risky, but it can be done. It can be done. I mean, you got to run it a little bit. You got to show the run. You got to have a little bit of success. I was thinking they could maybe get 120, 150 yards. If they had done that along with the 350 in passing, they'd have blown North Carolina out. But they couldn't do anything on the ground. As far as this Duke team is concerned, I mean, this is the thing about opening games. You just don't know. They do have practically everybody back from a 9-win team of last year. They have got 9 returning starters on offense, 8 on defense, 2 special team starters. They got their starting quarterback back, and it all starts with him. You heard Dabo Swinney say earlier in the week how impressed he was with him, what a dangerous quarterback he is, both running and throwing the football. So there'll be a lot of pressure on Clemson's pass rush to, yes, get to him, but you got to be careful not to let him get outside. And you also, if you're in man coverage, if Clemson blitzes and you're in man coverage, right, Chris? Defensive secondary's got the back turned, gap opens up the middle, and he's taking off up the middle for big gain. Riley Leonard, he's a big kid. He's 6'4", 212, very dangerous quarterback. So that's going to be a nice test for the Clemson defense right out of the gate.
He's a good quarterback that Clemson hasn't seen. They hardly ever get an opportunity to play Duke, and so this will be that first crack at it in a while. And I'll throw 2 stats at you. They both have the number 0 in them. Dabo Swinney in his career at Clemson is 12-0 against ACC opponents in the season opening game, whether it be like tonight or when conference play begins. And Duke is 0-13 in season opening games against nationally ranked opponents. I'm going to lean heavily on the Tigers here because this is a game they always seem to win, especially under Dabo Swinney. Matter of fact, he's 12-2 overall season openers, both those losses to Georgia. I think their defense just is going to be too much. As good as Riley Leonard and that offense was last year, and it was. They did a terrific job. I don't know that they have had to play all that often against the talented defense that can run and big and fast and the whole 9 yards that they're going to see tonight.
One thing I like about the Duke defense, man, they are veterans. They have an entire defensive front. They run a 4-2-5. They're 2 defensive ends. One's a senior, one's a grad student. Interior defensive tackles, one's a senior, one's a grad student. The 2 seniors are redshirt seniors, so they've been around a while. Middle linebacker's a senior. Weak linebacker is either a sophomore or a grad student, depending on who starts. And then in the secondary, they go grad student at a corner. They go sophomore the other corner, junior at the nickel. One safety is a grad student, the other is a senior. So it's a veteran team, veteran defensive team, and a good defensive team. If my memory's right, not having the numbers right in front of me, I think they allowed like 122 rushing yards per game last year, something like that. They were pretty good against the run. And interested to see what it looks like under Garrett Riley. How much will Clemson push the running game out there tonight?
Well, and you talk about that Duke team, not just on defense, Phil, but also on offense. This is the team that is bringing back 17 starters from last season's team that won 9 ball games. So they know how to win. They've got the experience. They'll be playing at home for whatever that's worth. I'll still be fascinated when you get into the stadium if it's not still almost like a Clemson home game or Duke fans finally buying in to their football program, and they'll prevent Clemson from taking over that stadium. If they have anything sort of to simulate a home field advantage, that might be enough for them. I still don't think they're good enough to beat Clemson, but this one may be a situation where they're in that ball game going into the fourth quarter and may give Tiger fans some anxious moments. Still think Clemson's defense is too good for Duke, but they're going to make some plays. I mean, that offense was really, really good last year, and they've got a solid quarterback. He's going to make some plays. I just don't think he'll make enough.
All right, no news out of Clemson as far as personnel. They did send out a travel sheet. They didn't break it down as far as anybody who should have been on there not being on there. I haven't seen any tweets checking out TigerNet. I haven't seen any tweets about anybody who's not here, who should be here. I'm not at the stadium per se. I'm down the street from it. So I don't think there's any news coming out of Clemson from a pregame standpoint. I see where Dabo Swinney said on ESPN a few moments ago that he's eager to see Klubnik play, and he believes Klubnik will thrive out of a practice environment and able to improvise. And that's the other thing we got to see now is Klubnik's team. How quickly is he going to settle in? Can he eliminate the mistakes that hampered him the little bit he played last year? I think we can we can watch that because he was a true freshman thrown out there. How mature is he now? How well will he hang in the pocket and not sense that feeling to take off and run maybe a little bit too soon? That's one thing I admired about Rattler Saturday. He stood in that pocket. He took shot after shot. That one completion he threw relatively early in the game deep down the field, he was popped hard, but he stood in the pocket and stepped into that throw. That's a major area of improvement for him. Let's see if Klubnik does the same thing.
Well, and Dabo Swinney has talked throughout camp that he's much more comfortable in the pocket. He's done a much better job of sort of taking the offense under his wing and becoming that leader. And, we heard a lot of that from Shane Beamer. He thought they'd be able to run the football. He thought they would do a tremendous job, throwing it, and they certainly did against North Carolina. He didn't anticipate, at least from what he told us publicly, what we saw on Saturday. Is Dabo a better gauge of what he has seen through fall camp that would translate into a solid performance tonight? Or will we be sitting here tomorrow evening talking about, we thought Cade Klubnik was going to play a lot better than he did? I guess we'll find out when you roll up to Wallace Wade Stadium here in a little bit.
Yeah, going to go take a shower first and then... No, heading over to the stadium. You can follow me on our Twitter at SportsTalkSC and our postgame on our website, SportsTalkSC.com. Chris, Pat, y'all take it over. Zach will be following with First and 10, maybe a little bit more from Darlington, and I'll see you tomorrow night.
Work for you rather than you working for your money? Go see my friends at Palmetto Citizens Federal Credit Union. They're not a mega bank and have been serving the Midlands since 1936, offering good old-fashioned customer service and free services. They'll look out for your financial well-being. With 14 locations, check them out today at palmettocitizens.org. Federally insured by the NCUA.
Ever wonder why more businesses don't provide the same excellent service as, say, Chick-fil-A? At Hometown 803, they do. They're your family-run, all things South Carolina store, famous for their 803 area code hats with the crescent moon. They also have Carolina and Clemson-themed hats and their latest drop, PVC patch hats, which are just on fire. Their local high school partner hats are the hats that give back with each sale. Visit their store in downtown Lexington next to McDonald's or online at hometown803.com. Use code RADIO at checkout to get 15% off.
With SRN News, I'm Keith Peters reporting a U.S. official says North Korean leader Kim Jong-un may travel to Russia this month to meet with President Vladimir Putin as the Kremlin tries to acquire military equipment for use in its war in Ukraine. National Security Council spokeswoman Adrienne Watson noted that Russian Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu traveled to Pyongyang last month and tried to persuade North Korea to sell artillery ammunition to Russia. She said the U.S. has information that Kim expects these discussions to continue. Several campaigns are placing a huge emphasis on South Carolina, where the Republican primary is traditionally the last chance for many White House hopefuls to break through before Super Tuesday. If former President Trump maintains his front-runner status in the state, his path to the GOP nomination may be nearly impossible to stop. More details at srnnews.com.
Hey, honey, I know you're taking some meds for cholesterol. I was reading that if you're on these medicines, you should also be taking some CoQ10.
Actually, our pharmacist mentioned that to me already. He called me the other day, and we went through each of my medications together.
Really? He called you?
Yeah, he asked if I was having any side effects, recommended supplements that could help me, and let me know the risk of mixing certain drugs.
Wow. I'm happy to know that True Pharmacy is thinking about us.
Pharmacy, 28 Charleston Highway, 3217 Divine Street, or visit truerxsc.com.
Hi, this is Kevin Cohen. I'm the owner, the general manager here at The Point. One of the most valuable lessons I've learned is to partner with great people. To that end, I'm looking to partner in the upcoming months with like-minded business owners, people who want to grow their respective businesses. Would you consider meeting with me in the very near future to discuss how The Point can partner with you so that you can exceed your own expectations in the coming year? Let's sit down over a glass of tea, a cup of coffee. Let's talk about how your business and my business can work together to meet our collective goals. I'm not looking simply for advertisers. I can find them by simply cold calling people a few times a week. What I'm looking for are business partners who share the vision that I have for my own small business. That vision is very simple. Local businesses need to support local businesses. period. If you have an interest in telling people about your business via the radio, let's make it happen, affordably and local. Call me directly, 563-8558, 563-8558. I'd appreciate the chance to meet with you. Maybe we can help each other.
Hi, I'm Glenn Matthews.
And I'm Melanie Matthews.
And we are the third generation owners of Modern Exterminating Company.
In a time when corporate consolidation, high-pressure door knockers, and inexperienced startups are becoming the norm, isn't it nice to have an experienced, local, family-owned company that you can count on since 1955?
Modern Exterminating has been the local, independent industry leader in the pest control business for the last 67 years. Experience the local, family-owned difference for yourself at 803-765-2315 or pestfreesc.com.
Join us at Erskine College for the Garnet and Gold Forum, featuring Dr. Stephen C. Meyer, director of the Discovery Institute Center for Science and Culture. Our forum is an event focused on Christian thinking in a secular society. Dr. Meyer is a best-selling author speaking on topics from his most recent book, The Return of the God Hypothesis. The forum will take place at Erskine College on Friday, September 29th, and includes a formal dinner. Tickets are available for the special event by visiting erskine.edu/Garnet and Gold Forum. That's erskine.edu/Garnet and Gold Forum.
Before you know it, you'll be lighting up your fireplace and enjoying the sights and crackling sounds of a beautiful fire. When's the last time you had your fireplace inspected or cleaned? Did you know the National Fire Protection Association suggests an annual inspection? That's where we come in. This is Drew with ChimSpector. Our certified team will come out, will sweep and provide a thorough inspection of your fireplace and chimney. It's safer and healthier, and we're local, fully insured, industry certified, and we care. Online at chimspector.com or give us a call at 803-878-7474. That's 803-878-7474.
Here we are at Sports Talk on a Labor Day Monday night all across the state of South Carolina. Chris Bergen over here in Sardis. No, really not in Sardis, closer to Florence, but since Phil likes me being in Sardis because that's the home of Cale Yarborough, that works for me. Pat Daniel back in our studios in Columbia. We'll catch up with Zach Willis. First and 10 here in just a couple of seconds. Before we do that, a couple of quick notes to pass along to you since we haven't had the time to get much into the news notes because we have turned the program over to you. And Phil and I were chatting during the break, and I think this may be something we do every Monday, sort of a caller-driven program on Mondays. Could be a lot of fun. Coastal Carolina's Clayton Isbell has been named this week's Sun Belt Conference Defensive Player of the Week. I mentioned earlier that he had, after transferring from Utah, tying a single-game record at Coastal with 3 interceptions in their loss to UCLA on Saturday. Meantime, Wofford punter Atkins Roberts was named the SoCon Special Teams Player of the Week, punted 7 times on Saturday at Pittsburgh, had an average of just over 44 yards a kick, 3 landing inside the 20-yard line, including a 68-yard punt in the fourth quarter. They're ranked as the 6th highest or 6th longest, depending on your perspective, in school history. We'll hear from the winner of the Cookout Southern 500, Kyle Larson, coming up in just a little bit. But Joe Gibbs Racing announcing today that it has signed Denny Hamlin to a multi-year contract extension. Hamlin saying, quote, in a release, "I'm excited to finally announce this so we can put all of our focus on chasing the championship. This should also mean that 2311 Toyota deal is done as well," according to Bob Pockrass. All right, we'll get into the final stages of the race in Darlington in just a couple of moments. But first, as we do every Monday nights, let's check it out. First and 10 with Zach Willis. On Duke, as we welcome into the program for First and 10 every Monday night, the coach, Zach Willis. Coach, happy Labor Day. How are you this evening?
I'm doing great, guys. How y'all doing?
We're doing very well. Appreciate you taking a few minutes away from your holiday barbecue to visit with us here tonight. Phil's already en route to walk up to Wallace Wade Stadium, so we'll take it over in his stead. So let's start with the Gamecocks before we get into the Tigers. Your assessment of what we saw on what turned out to be a pitiful Saturday night for USC.
Well, Phil, it honestly came down to two things. And number one, obviously everybody's talking about it's the offensive line. And, we talked about this last week. It was a deep concern of mine, and I know a lot of folks, and we're not happy that I wasn't a little bit more positive, but now they can see why. 9 sacks. He also it was hurried 12 times, Rattler was, and he was hit, seriously hit 3 times where there's one of his knees I was worried he wasn't going to get up from. And no running game, and no running back to keep it going the way they need to keep it going. I really love the Kieran Joyner. He's a fabulous team player, but he's not a running back. He did a great job, but he just didn't have any blocking.
So is it a problem with talent up front, in your opinion, after watching game one? Is it too early to tell? It's a scheme situation. What went wrong for an offensive line that allowed 9 sacks and 16 tackles for loss?
Well, the first thing is, if you look back at it and break it down, and that's what I always do, because you want to get facts and not opinions, I don't think it's a talent issue. I think it's more of an experience issue, and I felt like Carolina had a game plan. I felt like Dale Loggins had a plan going in. They tried to execute. They started off really well. Rattler played exceptionally well. The wide receivers, for the most part, played well. Unfortunately, their top receiver from last year went down early with an injury, so they didn't have any good luck going for them. Their short step stuff, their 3-step stuff where he was catching and throwing, they had no hits, no hurries there. It all came on the 7 to 5-step longer developing passes. And North Carolina was very smart. Jim Chizik's not just a commentator. He won a national title at Auburn. He was a great defensive coordinator, and he was able to single up. He put 5 rushers on 5 blockers. And he basically knew that he could do that. He could get the Rattler and get to him fast because man for man, Carolina couldn't hold up. And mainly it's because they've had to rebuild the offensive line, and the young guys have to develop. I think the jury's still out on how good they can be or how much they'll struggle. The problem is who South Carolina has to play down the road. They've got to get better fast, but I think they can. I saw no glaring problems with talent. That's something we'll see later. But North Carolina's got a good football team, and it shows in the offensive and defensive lines, too.
Zach Willis with us, 1st and 10 here on Sports Talk. And, Coach, I guess that's the problem that we have sometimes here in the state. It's easy to look at the deficiencies from USC or Clemson or the positives that those two put out and not necessarily give credit or take some away from their opponents. So is it more of what North Carolina did on Saturday night versus maybe what USC was unable to do against them?
I think that's exactly. North Carolina took away the run game. They pressured when they needed to, and a lot of times they lined up in what we call a bear front. They covered our double eagle. They covered the entire offensive lineup. They had a man over a man. Normally that doesn't happen. In the first half of the game, South Carolina really didn't have any issues with protecting the quarterback. They all came off, but I think 2 of the sacks happened in the late third or the fourth. I could be a little bit off on that, but that's what I'm getting here. And the more he had to hold, Rattler had to hold the ball, which is not nothing against him, the more problems they had, which is, you say, well, that's a normal thing. The problem with it was, too, South Carolina's receivers did not separate. They didn't get a lot of separation from people. They don't have a great speed burner right now out there, and that was an issue for them, too. Leggett was going up and taking the ball and jump balls from people or catching underneath routes and breaking tackles. They just got a proven identity, and honestly, we just got to wait and see. Usually the greatest improvement any team makes is from game 1 to game 2, and this coaching staff has showed us they know how to coach. They know how to improve from game 1 to game 12. They did that last year, and I would think there's no doubt they can do it this year. And they had some bad breaks. Losing the players they lost, it basically left for money by other programs that have been paying players for years, and now it's legal to pay them, so they're ready to go. And I hate to sound that way, but that's just the truth of the matter. It needs to be spoken. The everything I've ever known, South Carolina's running a fairly clean program. The programs they're losing kids to, their best kids to, they've had collectives all along. South Carolina just organized theirs when it got legal, like most teams. But these elite level programs have had collectives under the table for 50 to 75 years. And that's just the facts. And if you see Carolina gets transferred from Western Kentucky and places like that, when you're going and taking starters, like Kentucky did up here, took North Carolina State's starting quarterback, all ACC quarterback, great player, took him to go play at Kentucky. What do you think he did that for? One thing, money. The same reason they lost to Carolina, the big defensive end. He goes to Oregon. Now, what's in Oregon besides rain and sleet and snow? I'll tell you what, a whole bunch of money. And it needs to be said, and the fans need to understand, this has been going on for years in recruiting. Now they can just do it legally out in the open and you see it. So they've got to reorganize and get the collective at South Carolina ready and be able to compete on that level because it is legal now to do that. And that's what happened to South Carolina. That's the big thing.
Pat, you got something for Coach?
I didn't mean to blow your mind, but I'm just telling you guys the truth needs to be told. That's the fact.
No, I get it.
I appreciate it, and I do have a few things. I'm sorry, I'm trying to juggle a few hats here, and was trying to fix an audio issue. Let me see if I can frame this question right. So, 3 things that stood out, Zach, and I think these were. I'm not special. I think these stood out to everybody. Obviously, the offensive line play, but that's not even one of them. 3rd down conversion. Gamecocks only had a 29% conversion rate, and their average distance to go was 9 yards. Whereas conversely, North Carolina had a plus 60% conversion rate and about half the distance needed to go on 3rd down. Trying to figure out, let me separate these into different questions, I guess. First of all, how do the Gamecocks improve that? Is that a one-off type thing? Is that play calling? Or what can they do to improve that this weekend against Furman?
I think a couple of things. And Greg McElroy mentioned this. We call it, when I learned it, SDD. Not to get it confused with other more derogatory acronyms. Screens, draws, and delays. They need to build a cadence. They're going off of a clap. It'll be easy to do. They need to go on 2 or 3 or different than just a clap to draw the defense off sides, and also to put them back on their heels on 1st down. Don't be predictable. I think late in that ball game is when the percentages really drop for them because North Carolina knew they were behind, and also they didn't have a running game. And get creative. Screens and draws will help you with your, when they know they're going to be pass first. And also maybe a trap or 2, which they ran a couple of years ago. They had a counter play that worked very, very well for them. Different offensive lines have different identities. And they've got to figure out what these kids can do well together as a unit. Hopefully they can stay healthy. But the big thing, and boil it down, is to find a way, whether it's through cadence, whether it's through a blocking scheme, which is gap scheme versus a zone scheme. And the final thing is honestly, is just the mindset. Hey, we're going to have to run the ball and get 3 or 4 yards on 1st down here and there. And it comes back to experience and repetition. And then they just got to catch fire. Last year, this team started believing, said, screw it, we're just going to do what we can do. And they let it go. And, they beat Tennessee and beat Clemson. They're still capable. They just got to find their identity and plug some huge gaps that, basically, they didn't have any control over. And fans are upset, but they got to understand you need to join the collective at South Carolina if you want to stop losing your best players. Your best running back was the 2nd team at Southern Cal, and your best defensive lineman is playing for Oregon. And that's just the tip of the iceberg. There's plenty more where that came from. But that's an excellent observation. 1st down is going to have a direct impact on 3rd down. And distance to go is a massive thing. If you just get it down to 7 yards, usually your percentage of conversions goes up 10 to 12%. So what you're talking about is an excellent question for an old coach for sure.
I appreciate that. All good stuff, Zach. Next, another kind of troubling kind of aspect of that game, a trend there, if you will, was the inability to capitalize off of turnovers. The Gamecocks won the turnover battle with plus 2 over UNC, and then they also, of course, recovered that onside kick to open the second half. But out of those 3 extra possessions they received, the Gamecocks were only able to muster 3 points collectively between the 3. A lot of times when you see a team have, I'm counting the onside kick as another turnover. When you see a +3 in that category, typically in football games, that team will win. That did not happen here. What are the Gamecocks going to need to do a better job of capitalizing off those turnovers?
Well, I think Dal Loggins, again, deserves credit. He went for the jugular with them off the first turnover. He came out and tried to go deep and barely missed. And that's an age-old philosophy of, hey, try to go for the jugular, go for the deep ball, go for the big play right away. And I think finding out what works for this team, and they found out, okay, Legette's a home run hitter. We know Wells is a home run hitter as well. He can go get it. I think they lost Stogner, another guy, but I thought Luke Doty was very impressive and could be a really good option for them at wide receiver. He was kind of the bright spot in this whole deal, along with the rest of the wide receiver corps. But man, he showed some athleticism and guts going over the middle. Using those weapons, use what you have, and craft an offensive attack to, you have, we call it sudden change in the coaching business. A sudden change offense that takes advantage of what a defense does when they're on their heels or coming right off the bench. Again, I think the first game, it's way too early to say they're in great shape, or if they won or horrible shape if they lose. I think we just need to see what they do the next few weeks. Hopefully they get well this week against Furman, my old school. But we just need to honestly wait and see approach right now. But red zone production was bad. They got into the red zone and couldn't make it work. Again, all this leads back to one thing: no running game and no 5 to 7 step protection to throw the intermediate or deep ball. It really comes back to those things. When you can run the football, you can protect your defense and basically control the entire game. And if you go back and look, you can't convert on 3rd and short. You can't convert in the red zone when you can't run it.
1st and 10 with Zach Willis here tonight on Sports Talk. And, Coach, let's quickly look ahead to what's coming up here in about 15 minutes up in Durham as Clemson will open the season in a game that they seemingly always win. Season openers, Dabo Swinney's been awfully good. How do you see this one playing out, and can Duke stay on the field, especially offensively, against that very talented Clemson defense?
Well, I will always say first games, man, and I talked about this last week. Dabo will put on a brave face. Now, he honestly probably believes they're going to go out there and he wants them to play well and blow this thing open. You'll know by halftime if Clemson scores at the end of the half and they're getting opening kickoff for the first 4 minutes of the second half and they go down and score, it's going to be real tough for Duke to finish that ball game and be close. But we have to remember Duke does have some talent. They had a pretty good football team last year, but I would not bet against the Tigers. I'll be very disappointed if they don't come out and take care of business. I look for the Tigers to do well. I think they've got a chip on their shoulder, too. And I think there's nobody better at using that to create momentum and motivation in a team that's known for high character. Losing to South Carolina last year and finishing the way they did against Tennessee will be a massive motivator, and I look for a very sharp Clemson Tiger team tonight. You never know until we play.
Yeah, that's always the guessing game, isn't it? Are you on and then we'll let you go, are you on the side of coaches who believe that college football might actually be a little bit better if they had an opportunity to scrimmage another team during preseason camp?
Oh, Lord, yeah. Now, I've always have been. When I was a small college coach and it was allowed, I always took advantage of it, and we always played extremely well in our first game. Anytime you can get live looks that are game conditions and you're hitting somebody other than your teammates, things are going to ramp up and it's going to seem more like a real game. So absolutely I am. You worry about injuries, but honestly, it's football. You can't live in fear. So even the NFL, they have preseason games and they'll spend days at a time scrimmaging and practicing individual drills against each other. They, cross practice all the time. So it's obviously a benefit from a coaching standpoint.
1st and 10 with Zach Willis every Monday night here on Sports Talk. Coach, we appreciate the time as always. Enjoy the Tigers and Blue Devils here tonight, and we will talk with you next week.
Okay, guys. Thank you.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's Zach Willis here on Sports Talk. Do a final timeout here on this Labor Day Monday night. We'll come back. Pat and I will kick it around for a few more moments, get Pat's thoughts about tonight's game between Clemson and Duke since he hasn't had a chance. And we'll wrap things up next here on Sports Talk. Farm Bureau Insurance's agricultural roots and ties to South Carolina farmers have shaped the company's culture and work ethic, providing a unique customer experience. Customers are treated like people, not policies. Now, while other insurance companies may have a one-size-fits-all approach to handling customers, we believe you need to be valued and treated right. Our claims professionals work until the job is done, and our agents still believe in the commitment that comes with a handshake. Call Buddy Bridges in Clinton and Lawrence at 864-923-2174 for all of your auto, home, and life insurance needs.
Summer weather has arrived in South Carolina, and you know what that means. Sweet, tasty South Carolina peaches are hitting shelves near you. Most people tend to think of Georgia as the peach state, but South Carolina is the East Coast's top producing peach state, so we know a thing or two about a great tasting peach. The next time you're in the grocery store or local farmer's market, keep an eye out for those sweet, tasty, certified SC peaches. Discover more about the tastier peach state at scpeach.org.
Investing can be like a puzzle. There's so many pieces to consider, and it can be hard to know where to start. But with the right guidance, you can put the pieces together to create a winning strategy. That's where Founders Investment Services come in. Our team of financial advisors can help you navigate the complexities of investing and create a personalized plan that fits your goals and risk tolerance. We'll work with you to identify the pieces of your puzzle and how they fit into your financial future. Call 866-739-7064 or visit foundersfcuinvestments.com to learn more about how we can help you take the first step towards reaching your financial goals. Securities offered through LPL Financial.
Hi, I'm Jim Corbett. I've been an attorney for more than 30 years. There's one thing I've learned about injury cases. It's you need the personal touch. You need the lawyer to get to know you and describe your damages. You don't want a case manager talking to an insurance company, then talking to you, and then talking to maybe to a lawyer with limited experience at the last minute to try to settle a case. I talk to you. I find out what your case is about. Jim at JimCorbettAttorney.com. Jim at JimCorbettAttorney.com for your injury cases.
You've put in the work for your education. The extra early, extra late, extra work. That's because you understand education opens doors to better pay, better opportunities, and a better you. Being educated about playing the lottery is no different. It helps you be a better player, one who knows when to play and when to take a rain check. The lottery's a game, so let's keep it fun. Learn more at sceducationlottery.com/betteryou.
Back we are, final few moments of Sports Talk here on this Labor Day Monday night. Appreciate you dialing us up all around the states. I know many of you getting ready for Clemson and Duke. We are as well. Follow Phil's coverage, wall-to-wall coverage up on our Twitter page at SportsTalkSC, and then rehash, recap, and everything to follow up at SportsTalkSC.com. We'll hear from Dabo Swinney, I'm sure. Also, Shane Beamer tomorrow on a Talking Tuesday. Not really enough time, to be fair, to Kyle Larson, the winner of the Cookout Southern 500 last night. You can hear he and Cliff Daniels, his crew chief, chat about the race, all the pertinent info up on our website, sportstalksc.com. I did find it one thing that was fascinating to me, and unfortunately at Darlington sometimes this is what happens. They'll get strung out, and they'll run, and especially now we have stage races, Southern 500. You want to protect your car, save your tires as best you can, so they run 110 laps under green flag conditions last night, the longest green flag run at Darlington since 2013, which was fascinating. Now, if you want a point of reference, it's not anywhere close to the record amount of laps run under green flag conditions. This is per Racing Reference Info, and also our good friend Monty Dutton, who knew this as well. Not surprising. The longest green flag run at Darlington was the 1963 Southern 500. Pat, do you want to hazard a guess as to how many laps of what was not 300. It's currently 367. It was 364 laps back in 1963. Would you like to hazard a guess as to how many green flag laps they ran over a period of time without having a caution flag?
14. I'm probably way off.
How about add 350 to that?
Oh, my
They
God.
actually ran the entire race back in 1963 without a caution flag. 364 laps, no caution flag.
All right, that convinces me it's way too easy to get a driver's license in this country. Or to hop in an
Because anybody can do it, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, obviously not. I say that all in jest, but that is impressive. All right, so is it because they've made it more strict and it's easier to go into a caution today? Like maybe back then there was more bumping and grinding and such. Like, have the rules changed?
That's a really good question. That is a really good question because I don't know. Or it was the situation where they got so strung out that you couldn't wreck into anybody else because you weren't riding around beside anybody. Have to ask Monty Dutton because evidently he knows the answer to that. So
great Monty question.
I thought that was fascinating stuff. All right, quick thoughts from you since you haven't had a chance to chime in tonight. What do you expect to see from the Tigers?
Everybody talks about the Tigers' new offense. I'm more interested in the defense tonight. Duke returns almost all their starters. They have an elite left tackle. I'm curious to see, and they have a great quarterback. Curious to see how Clemson's star-studded defensive line, if they're able to get pressure on the quarterback over at Duke, on Riley Leonard. That's where I'm really excited about tonight, is just seeing the trenches and seeing if Clemson's able to get pressure on that quarterback or not. Because if they don't, they might be in trouble. Leonard can sling it.
And were you impressed with what you saw from Clemson's probably closest competitor in Florida State last night against LSU?
That, especially throwing the ball late, that was a shot across the bow or a warning to everybody in the ACC and across the country. Mike Norvell and the Seminoles, they are for real. Jaheim Bell, 2 touchdowns. Wow.
Jordan Travis, 23 of 31, 342 yards and 4 scores, just 1 interception. Enjoy the ball game tonight, folks. We'll come back and talk about it with you tomorrow night.
And evening, Columbia's local talk radio experience. 107 The Point. MakeThePointRadio.com.